Welcome back, people. It's me, Platinum, back in the garage again. Today, 2008 Ford Focus. I've seen a lot of people online showing how to get the thermostat housing out, which they're going through a whole deal of hard steps on how to reach the bolts. I'm going to show you all a other way, easier way to get the thermostat housing out without having to fight with it, using extensions and everything else. So this is the 2008 Ford Focus. So we're gonna get started now. Next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna remove the coolant bottle. Two 10mm bolts. Take the bolts out, pull the bottle up, put it on the side. Let's move the bottle on the side, it's out your way. Alright, so you see why I got the extension right here? It's a 10mm socket, and it comes up to right here, and we gotta remove the bottle. So from right here, facing the front of the car, straight in, and about up to right here, it's a 10mm. Gotta take that screw out, so we can release the bottle and move it out of the way. Now from the front, there's the next 10mm right here where the extension is at. It's right down in here. So it's on the opposite side of this one that goes in here. So you also got to get that one as well, but this is right too. So you got to release that. Once you get that nut crack, the bottle should wiggle in because you know it's loose. See? All you do is just remove the bolts. Okay, once you get the bolts out, you want to give it a wiggle. You might want to wiggle it out so you can move this out the way. Once it comes out the way, it's connected by a hose, but you don't really got to move the hose. So right here, you will see a sensor. You can unplug the sensor, and as you look straight in, you see a 13mm bolt. You need to remove that as well. Yeah, so after you move the bottle out the way, which is here in the floor, once you move that out the way, you have access right here to the thermostat housing. This is how easy it is. Just take your hand and you can put it right there, and this is the whole thing right here I'm touching. Alright, you have access to it. So all you have to do is remove the 3 bolts, the 2 to the top, 2 to the top, and 1 to the bottom. 8mm. Alright, I suggest you unplug this, the power steering sensor, because you don't want to hit it and break it, because it might be in your way if your hands are big. So just unplug it just to be safe, so you don't break that, so you just don't break this. So once you get in there, there will be 3 bolts. Let me see if I can zoom in so you can see. Don't know how much I can get, but there's 3 bolts. 1, 2, and 3. Once you get them out, so this is what it looks like once you get it out. And the face is like this. When it's in the car, it looks just like this in the car. 1 bolt, 2 bolt, and the 3rd one is right in the corner. Now, not all of them, y'all have to check. Some of them come with sensors, some don't. Obviously, this car didn't came with a sensor, but somebody put one in with the sensor. I guess that's the only thing they could have got, but it still works. So all you have to do now, put the new one back in, and same thing. You install it this way, face up, with the 2 bolt holes up top, and you put it straight in, and then you put the bolts back in. As you can see, there it is. Thermostat housing is back in, right back there. It's all bolted back up with the 3 holes, 2 holes up top and the 1 in the corner. And all that's left to do is to put everything back together now, put the hoses back on and everything. Oh, which I forgot to say. When you do, the clamp's gonna be here, so make it much easier for you to remove the hose clamps as well and put them back on. I suggest removing the old clamps and putting new clamps on, just so you don't have no leakage from the old spring clamps, and just use hose clamps instead. So time to put it back all together with the hoses and seal this thing back up. So first thing, I'm just gonna take the smaller hose, put that one back on. Since it's farther away, I'm gonna put this one back on first, the smaller side. And like I said, I'm gonna use hose clamps. Remove the metal clamps and use the hose clamps, because the metal clamps may leak and you don't want to go back in the system again just to take it apart to redo the work. So you might as well just change it while you're there. Once you get that on, you just put your hose clamp in and tighten it down. Alright, so once you get this small one back on, you put the big one back on, because you're going from farthest to closest, okay? So now you put the big one back on. So let's get that on so we can get this thing closed up. Alright, so once you got your both hoses on, small and the big size, if you do have the sensor, make sure you plug that back in right afterwards. If you don't, then you go for the next step, which you plug back in the sensor right in here for the power steering pump. Just make sure you plug everything back in that you take apart. Once you snap that back in, all that's left is to put your power steering reservoir back on, and you should be done. So let's get your reservoir, put it back inside the hose, put the clamp back on it, and you should be finished. All you do, get your hose and stab the bottle right into it. And once you get the bottle stabbed, you just put the hose clamp back on it, and then we can bolt it back up. Alright, so once you get your line stabbed back into the bottom, don't forget, on the power steering bottle, there's 2 O-rings in here. I don't know if you'll barely be able to see it, but there's 2 O-rings here that goes back into the hole here. You might want to take some of the power steering fluid and lubricate it, because you don't want to have those O-rings going dry and then you end up breaking them and it start a leak. So just dip your finger in the power steering fluid, lubricate it, and then stab the bottom. So once you lubricate it, you can just take the bottle, flip it, line it up, and push it back in. Once you get the bottle back in, then you put the bolts back in. And that's a 10mm bolts. First one goes back into the side. Now you just line the bolts back up, stab them in. Make sure you stab the bolts first before you tighten them. Get both bolts back into the spot it needs to be before. Once you get that done, you can go ahead and tighten them up now. You can just put it in, tighten those 2. That's it. Once you tighten it back up, it's good to go. All you gotta do is fill this bottle here back up with the power steering fluid. Make sure you fill it back up with the correct power steering fluid that it asks for. Oops, too much. Alright. So once you get that done, we have to suck some of that out, but once you get that done, you put the cap back on, and then you fill the system with coolant. Alright, so all that is back together. Last step, take your coolant reservoir, put it back, take your bottle, put it back where it needs to be. Put the screws back in and bolt it down. So all we have left to do now is to bleed the system and it will be finished. So the thermostat housing is done. Car is filled back up with coolant, running cool and everything. Check engine is cleared for the thermostat code. So this is one way that you can also do the thermostat housing, and with this way, removing that power steering pump bottle reservoir, you create way more space for you to work with, especially if you have big hands like mine. Once you move that bottle, take 2 bolts and you can just reach in there and do everything that you need to do. So that is more easier way to get it done. So thanks for watching. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Once again, 2008 Ford Focus.